So why focus on the solicitation call? Respect. Out of respect for the donors, we want to know exactly what we're going to do. We want to go in and we want to do it with as much integrity and clarity and powerful as possible, because their time is precious and they deserve the very best from us, the very best representation of our organizations. Prospects too. If we have staff involved, if we have volunteers involved, we may be bringing a board member, we may be bringing our president, our chancellor in my case, an executive director with us. We want to have this thing be perfect because they deserve it. They're putting their time and energy into this call on our behalf out of respect for our organization. But we prepare because the consequences are far-reaching. You see, one gift oftentimes leads to the next gift, oftentimes leads to the next gift, oftentimes leads to the next gift. And during the course of that gift giving, sometimes it grows in terms of size and impact for our organization. So while we might be going on a relatively minor call in our minds, we're not, we're going to ask for something more modest. Don't underestimate the power and value of that in terms of the long term. Now here's a point that's not here, but I'm going to make. I used to coin the phrase facilitators of philanthropy. Here's the thing. Oftentimes, the relationship that the donor or the prospect has with our organization preceded us. And you know what? In most cases, that relationship is going to succeed us. So we've got a responsibility to tread lightly, to be the best possible stewards of those relationships on behalf of our organizations, out of respect for those donors, never undervaluing an interaction, an exchange with a donor, whether it's a solicitation or some other kind of call. We prepare thoroughly, we prepare thoughtfully and carefully out of respect. And we want to grow in our effectiveness and acquire mastery. We can be better tomorrow than we are today. In fact, that's why we're all here. We want to be better tomorrow than we are today. So let's talk about preparation. What's the purpose of the call? Why are we going to see the prospective donor? Let's get crystal clear on that. Where are we going to visit with the donor? You ever gone on a call and you had the call take place and it just got screwed up? You couldn't do what you wanted to do? Deb Godwin and I, where's Deb? Deb Godwin and I were in New York City 3-4 months ago, and we're having dinner with this marvelous couple, and we knew exactly what we wanted to do. Now the couple, this was their favorite restaurant, and they described it as a small, intimate restaurant. Small, intimate, we can do that. We can make a small, intimate restaurant. Till we got there, and there was a group of 20 people right next to us, celebrating something, and I mean celebrating something. I turned 60. There's something wrong with my hearing, see. And I'm not quite picking up. And I kind of looked at Deb, and she kind of looked at me, and I was like, have another glass of that great wine. So fortunately, this gentleman, his wife couldn't be with him. Subsequently, we had a meeting with him. About 30 days later, he was coming to St. Louis. Then we executed our business. But had we really appreciated the location, the setting, we wouldn't have planned it as we were planning, right, and been frustrated. Or we would have said, look, before we have that marvelous dinner, could we have an hour of confidential time in your office? Could your wife join us? We would have planned it differently. Location, so very, very important. Who best to go on the call? Are you going to handle it yourself? Are you going to bring somebody? Who would be the best person to bring? Maybe a volunteer who helped facilitate this meeting. As I said, your president, your chancellor, your executive director, a faculty member who's an expert in an area that you're hoping to raise money from. And then what will the roles be of the person or people that are on the call? You want to be very clear on who's doing what. Who's going to make the solicitation? who's going to negotiate what follows thereafter? Are there objections you can foresee that you should anticipate and plan for and discuss with those that are going to go out in the call with you? Preparations, very important. Early on at UMSL, we had this opportunity to go in front of this very, very wealthy individual. And such an important individual to us that we had the president of our Chancellor's Council at that time, one of the leaders of our campaign, Chancellor George and me. And we met and we went over what it was we were going to do when we got to this person's situation for the visit. And one fellow among this group who ran a $350 million company in St. Louis at the time, he dealt with thousands of people, boards, I mean, just an incredibly challenging position for him, very, very capable. He said he would make the ask, and we're going to ask for a lot of money. So we get in the call, all is going well, it's just as we planned. And then we get to the point where it's, come on, what's he doing? Well, here's this very capable fellow. I hate to say it, he's choking. I'm sitting there thinking, crap. I guess I'm going to have to ask. And I heard afterwards, talking with our chancellor, the chancellor said, crap. I guess I'm going to have to ask. So I asked, and it went well, and he was a little afterwards, kind of a little, embarrassed. I reassured him we accomplished everything we needed to accomplish, and his willingness to do that was fantastic, and his other contributions in the call were invaluable. I think he went away without his ego being too damaged. And we made the ask, but you know what I decided right then and there? Any call I'm on, I'm doing the asking. I ask for a living. Could be a good volunteer. I'm going to do the asking. And you know what? Chancellor doesn't have a problem with that. Our Chancellor, I don't know if you know Chancellor George, I mean, he is a brilliant storyteller. He's the most personable genius I've ever met. And to have him on a call is just priceless. But I don't ask him to take the order or to do the negotiating. When we bring George Paz, George is like, I mean, you can't get a more persuasive testimonial than George. He's so grateful for his education as a first-generation son of an immigrant, graduate of our university, and he took years to graduate, like many of our UMSL students still do today. We just let him tell his story. And I tell you what, I get these two working, it's like it's pretty easy. I ask and I negotiate. So we need to be clear on those things. What's the nature of the relationship? Is it somebody new to the organization or someone you've known for years? What do you know about them? I always review that information before I go on a call. What's happened most recently with someone? What's happened most recently? On martinleifeld.com, I've got a little video vignette, 7-8 minutes on what I call listening, which talks about not just active listening in the call, but what you do with what's shared and revealed to you on the call, which has everything to do with your next call. And, are there personal details you want to follow up on? So someone says in the last call, yeah, my daughter Marianne, she's getting married in 6 weeks. Martin can't help you right now. That thing's going to cost us okay, all right. So I come to see him 2 weeks after that, after the wedding. How was Marianne's wedding? Was it exciting? Did it go perfectly? Seems like there's always a flub up on these things. And, big smile on the face, telling the stories, how exciting it was. For them, it was one of, this couple I'm thinking of, the most magical moment in their life, marrying off their daughter. So I record this information when I get back to the office. In fact, in the car oftentimes I'll call my assistant. I have the luxury of an assistant who does transcription. And then I review and refer to those notes as I'm preparing the call so that I remember to ask about that wedding. Because I don't know about you. My mind's like mud. My mind is not that good. I can't keep track of all the details of all the donors I care about and that I have a responsibility for. So I record it so that I can recall it. And what's so important, why is that important? They feel respected. They know in the course of the relationship you represent transactions, but they don't want to be seen as a checkbook. They want to be seen as people that matter. And what matters isn't the transaction, it's the daughter that's about to be married. This is what matters. It's the relationship that we steward. Focus on the relationship. Record those nuggets that are personal. Bring them back in the next call. And it's amazing things happen. Okay, materials for the call. What are you bringing a case statement? Are you bringing a letter from your senior most executive or from the board chair? Are you bringing a gift? And we'll talk about reciprocity in a few minutes. Or some other resource? Are there additional materials that can amplify your organization that you put in a pocket folder? Maybe a newsletter or a brochure or a magazine or an article about your organization that appeared in the paper or something like that. Information you can print out in beautiful color about from your website. What can you bring? Then the pre-meeting. You have the pre-meeting. You review the call. Who has what roles? What are the resources you're bringing? You make sure everybody's on the same team. You confirm the details if necessary. You rehearse as necessary. Rehearsal. When I came to St. Louis in 1995, I went to work for Diocese of Belleville in Southern Illinois with an outstanding leader, Bishop Wilton Gregory, who's now Archbishop of the Archdiocese of Atlanta, Georgia. He's a remarkable man. And during my years there, I really got into major gift fundraising. And I remember how nervous I was, as in scared. I was scared. And Southern Illinois, 28 counties, we had people all scattered all over. I'd get in my car over there from Belleville, and sometimes I'd be driving 45 minutes, sometimes 3 times 45 minutes to get to somebody, and I had all this time in my car. And what I found out after a couple of learning from failures is that I really didn't like driving an hour and a half back after not completing what I set out to do. And so I would rehearse in my car. I would say it out loud again and again. Now, John and Mary, will you give us $50,000. You can pay it over the next 5 years if you like, for this purpose in education. It will change the lives of children. And I'd say it again, and I'd say it again, and I'd say it again. And it worked for me. I'd get in there, and they might look uncomfortable or not. There might be distractions or not. But finally, when it would be ready, I could say, John and Mary, and out would come the rest, regardless of how I felt, and I made the solicitation. I still rehearse, and I still rehearse in the car going to meetings. That works for me. Okay, execution. Again, immediately before we call, we rehearse. We review. We confirm the details. Ask yourself a very important question. How am I feeling today? How am I feeling? Am I feeling nervous? Am I feeling fearful? Am I feeling exhausted because I was all up all night with the baby? Am I feeling overwhelmed? Am I feeling pressure because if we don't get this money, there's a consequence? How am I feeling? And we have to work with our feelings. We're going to talk about that more in a minute. Think about the positive attributes of who you're going to see. In other words, we take our eyes off of ourselves and how we feel, and we begin to think about who it is we're going to see. What they've done for us, what they mean to the community, what remarkable people they are, how privileged we are that we get to go and engage with these people. We do things like, don't do it in their office, but stretching, deep breaths, all of that. And be on time. Never be late. Never be late. And if you're late, grovel appropriately. Okay. Then we implement the call as planned. Now I like to say 2 G's and a C. Say that after me. 2 G's and a C. I like to lead with gratitude, gifts, and compliments. 2 G's and a C. If you want to, as you establish rapport, if you want to dispose that donor to take you seriously, 2 G's and a C. 2 G's and a C. Gratitude, gifts, compliments. I read recently, maybe you saw that even an insincere compliment is valuable. Anybody read that? Think about that. People desire compliments that even when they know, oh, he's just pulling my leg, they appreciate it nevertheless. I mean, that's powerful. Now, we're not in the business of giving insincere compliments, but we give compliments. Well, John and Mary, I don't remember that picture being on the wall. Is that the whole family gotten together there? Oh, Martin, you wouldn't believe it. Last summer, we finally had the family reunion. That's the most handsome, good-looking family I've ever seen, John and Mary. Well, aren't they now? Gifts. Bring gifts. They can be, I'm not saying expensive. Bring gifts. I brought this for you. I was up seeing a donor recently in Chicago, and guess what? I brought 2 baseball caps. Cardinals in the front, UMSL in the back. I was working my way to $100,000 with these donors, which we got. And this is my maybe 4th visit. And he says, Martin, you're always bringing gifts. And I thought to myself, I'm glad you noticed. And we're going to talk about reciprocity in a minute. So, back to implementing the call as planned. We establish rapport. We ask as we planned. We handle the objections, and someone is responsible on the call to summarize, to make sure the donor and that your team, if you have a team, or you, understand where we are and how we're going to proceed. And then you depart warmly and with gratitude. Let's say they say, no, I don't like you. I don't like your organization. I don't want to give you any money. You know what you say? I am so grateful for the time you've made for us today, particularly given your inclination towards us. You may not be feeling warmth, but you exude warmth. They're the most important person in the world, even if they say no to you rudely. They're the most important person in the world. The other day, our group was meeting. Every 3 weeks, our fundraisers get together, and one of our staff brought up this challenging situation. She said there's a number of donors from an era in the college that she services. They always complain about that era. They complain about their education and so on and so forth. And it was interesting, the various comments that made. And I'm trying to remember exactly what I said about that. Anybody remember?
It was terrific.
No soup for you. I said, in effect, that complaints are a starting point. Wouldn't you rather have a complaint than no visit? Wouldn't you rather have to listen to somebody whine on because they were so unhappy with you than not take the meeting? Of course you would. It's a starting point. It's what we do with it. We develop donors. We lead donors somewhere. They start in misery and despair. We're right there with them, and then we take them somewhere. Don't look at complaints and unhappiness as negatives. Rejoice in the fact that they're taking the meetings in order to dump that stuff on you. Now, I'll tell you what. Do you ever come back from a meeting exhausted? Do you ever come back from a meeting saying, thank God that's over? I mean, it takes its toll on us as people. I'm an introvert. I don't know about you, but 2 calls in one day, 3 calls in one day, I'm shot for a week. It's not quite that bad. So we have to take care of ourselves here, but we put the donor first. We can go back, find somebody to commiserate with. Go get some exercise. Take care of yourself. All right, follow through. The call is ended. You've left the meeting. You have to go through post-call reflections and considerations. Who does what next, in what order and what time? We want to get thank yous out in a timely fashion. I think UMSL does a brilliant job of stewardship. And that goes to all of our people. It's all of our people that make that happen. But I come back from a call, I write a handwritten note to the donor. I dictate a letter that the chancellor signs from the chancellor if he was on the call. Or if there's another fundraiser or a dean or a faculty member, we ask that they generate a communication. You can't thank people enough. You cannot thank people enough. How many times does someone say, "Stop thanking me"? They'll say, "Oh, stop thanking me." Oh, stop thanking me. People deserve to be thanked. We can't thank people enough. That's a first consideration and follow through. We create a record of our call, as I mentioned. We fulfill what we said we were going to do, and we follow up as necessary to bring that call to completion, whatever was entailed. How's that sound? Helpful? All right, I think we're taking a break. A 15-minute break. Enjoy, and thank you so much.